Good morning all, camelbacktrading.org coming to you this Wednesday morning, August 2nd. We're looking at Window Trader's market profile of the ESNENQ. So there are two questions that need to be answered this morning early on to see what direction we're going to take. Number one, will the gap hold? Now we still have just about 80 minutes to go prior to the opening. Downside gaps this year, we've had 29 of them, only 7 have held, so 24% of the time they've held. So that's the first big question. The next big question is, will we have any opportunity to go test last week's low? That's what the bear is, right? We always talk about targets. Like yesterday, the NQ battled their ass off to finally get that 13 wide POC. That's all they wanted to do, right? They came off, and now look where we are this morning. So the next thing, will we be aggressive enough on the downside to go test not only the weekly low, which if you're able to take it out would put the weekly into balance, but it's also basically the balance low. Now I'm using the 20th as the balance low, not last Thursday, but they're very close together. So if we take out Thursday's low, there's a good chance the 20th low is going to be tested. So very, very important things here. Does the gap hold? Do we take out the weekly low to come into balance on the weekly? Do we test the balance low? And what happens if and when we get there? Those are our three main concerns this morning. Righty right now, not looking possibly to gap lower. They're inside of yesterday's range, although in the overnight they certainly traded lower. NQ also looking to possibly gap lower. So as far as the game plan, now we have 80 minutes to go. We had a wide POC yesterday that was going to be a downside destination. It's now an upside destination, right? If this gap is to fill and we get any acceptance into yesterday's range, well, that would be your next target, especially if we get the overnight high, okay? Because there's not much inside of yesterday if we're to fill this gap. And more importantly, not the gap fill, more importantly, get the overnight high, okay? You know how important that is to me once you get one of the overnights. So that's one thing that bears would have to defend, the gap and more importantly, the overnight high. Okay, because that's also right below value low from yesterday. On the flip side, what do we look for early this morning? I would definitely look for a short. Okay, the overnight is short. We'll see if we get some inventory adjustment. If we do, I would look to short against the gap fill and the overnight high. Okay, there's no doubt I would look to do that. As far as a long, right where we are, not really looking for one. Okay, I don't think there's a lot to lean on right here since we're still fairly far away from the weekly low. So I would need a little bit better MGI to say I want to look for a long at this point. If we're to get near the weekly low, then I would definitely look for one at some point, especially if it happened in a period where we drove straight down. If it's throughout the day and we have, say, a large trend day on the way down, be a little more careful. But I probably would maybe the first time take a long against it as both buyers trying to defend a weekly from going balance and balance low might attract some buyers, at least the first time. And then on the chart, so here's the weekly. So last week's low in SPY is 451.55. So we're still about $2.50 above it, okay? But right now, as far as our checklist, we're going to be starting with lower value, gap, and indices down about 0.6%. So sellers are going to have an edge. So this is what the bulls are going to certainly want to defend if we get down there. Also, the 20-day moving average, which closed at 450.09, will be higher. So we'll see how much closer that is now to last week's low. And then on the daily, again, a lot of people, we went over this last night. A lot of people would consider us down right away with this gap lower. I don't have a problem with that, right? It's an art. Everything's subjective. It's not 1 + 1 = 2. But to me, the bigger part is Thursday's low and the 20th low, okay? That's where change will really take place if we get acceptance below those two lows. Because then not only are you coming out of a 9-day balance or so on the daily, and then the weeklies, and the daily would be down, the weekly would be back in balance. Okay? So that's the real big level. Figure Thursday's low. So that's what we'd be looking at this morning. Thanks for the likes and subscribing. Good luck trading today. And we'll recap at 4 p.m.